I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I've been the guy people thought would never make it. You know, the one who's always dreaming big but never really doing much to bring those dreams to life. My family, mom, dad, 2 older brothers, and a younger sister, never took me seriously when I told them I was going to start my own business. They laughed, really. You might think that's an exaggeration, but trust me, it wasn't. They thought I was just being the usual me. The dreamer who talks a big game but has zero follow-through. And I get it. You see, I'd failed a couple of times before, small ventures that fizzled out after a few months. The first was a tech startup I tried running right out of college. I had big visions for a sleek app that was going to revolutionize the way we do laundry. Don't ask. I have no idea what I was thinking. The second time was a little e-commerce store I launched, selling quirky, customized phone cases. That one was doomed from the start, to be honest, but I learned from it. But this time was different. I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to let the failures of the past stop me from reaching my goal. I had finally found something I could sink my teeth into. Something that actually made sense. So, I poured my time, energy, and money into this new venture, a small, niche business selling eco-friendly products. It was a market that was slowly but surely gaining traction, and it felt like the perfect time to dive in. I worked tirelessly, often late into the night, pushing through the frustration, the doubts, and the voices in my head telling me that I was going to fail, just like before. But I didn't. I made it. I remember the first month I saw some decent sales, nothing crazy, but enough to keep me going. It was enough to show me that it wasn't all just a pipe dream. That this could actually work. So, what do you think my family did when I finally had some success? Well, they didn't exactly roll out the red carpet and congratulate me. No, they didn't say, "Wow, we were wrong. You did it! You proved us all wrong." Instead, they did what they do best. They acted like nothing had changed. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. Sure, they were kind of supportive in their own way. My mom would ask me, "So, how's that little business of yours going?" in the same tone you'd use to ask a toddler if they'd finished their coloring book. My brothers would nod and say something like, "That's cool, man," before quickly switching the topic to something more important, like their jobs or their vacations. It was almost as if they were waiting for me to mess up, to prove them right. But then something unexpected happened. The business kept growing. And I kept growing with it. Word of mouth kicked in. I started getting some press. People started reaching out, asking for advice. And, soon enough, I found myself with a small but reliable team of freelancers and a growing customer base that was seriously loyal. It wasn't huge by any means, but it was working. And then, out of nowhere, my phone started blowing up. It was my family. First, it was my sister. "Hey, I heard your business is doing really well. Maybe you could hire me as your social media manager, huh? I mean, I'm really good with that stuff, and I could totally help you grow even more." A little confused, I thought, alright, that's kind of random. But I shrugged it off, thinking she was just trying to be supportive in her own way. Then, a few days later, it was my mom. She sent me a text. "I was talking to your cousin's friend, and she told me about this company that does amazing digital marketing. I think you should hire them. I know it's expensive, but I'm sure they'll get you results. Also, maybe you should hire your dad to help with deliveries. He's been driving trucks for years, and he'd be perfect." Okay. I wasn't entirely sure how to react to that. Was my mom seriously trying to get me to hire her husband for a job he didn't even know how to do? It was like they saw my success and immediately thought they could swoop in and get a piece of the pie. And it didn't stop there. It was my brothers next. The same ones who had mocked me for years. Yo, man, I've been thinking, you should totally get me in on your business. I've got a lot of experience with accounting, and I can help you streamline your operations. It's not even about the money, I just want to see you succeed. Each message, each call, left me with more questions than answers. And with every passing day, the requests got bolder. The demands got louder. They weren't just asking for favors anymore. They were making it clear that they expected jobs. What was I supposed to do? How could I make them understand that this wasn't a family charity? I had built this business from scratch, and while I was grateful for their support, however thin it was starting to feel like they thought I owed them something. And the longer this went on, the more I felt like I was being pulled into a web of guilt, responsibility, and resentment. But the tension was only beginning to rise. I'll be honest, I never expected this to blow up like it did. I mean, I knew my business had potential, but family stepping in like this? That wasn't part of the plan. The more I tried to brush it off, the more it felt like I was stuck in this weird game where I wasn't even sure of the rules anymore. It was becoming a full-on circus. Every day, someone else in my family had a new suggestion, or demand, really, about how I should be running things. My brother, Sam, who was never really interested in business, suddenly had ideas about streamlining my product line. He'd call me up, sounding all professional, giving me his expert advice. You know, bro, I think you should cut back on your inventory. It's just too much to manage, and honestly, I don't think your customer base is that big yet. Let's simplify it. Yeah, like it was his company to simplify. I didn't even ask for his input, but there he was, telling me how I should manage my products as if he'd been working in the industry for years. And then there was Mom. Her messages kept coming in like clockwork. First, she'd ask if I'd heard of the latest influencer, then ask if I had thought about hiring them to promote my brand. I'd politely say I already had a plan, and she'd hit me with another one. Have you thought about adding a kids line to your products? I bet you could make a killing in the baby market. A kids line? I was selling eco-friendly cleaning supplies. What would a kids line even look like? Would she want me to make organic baby wipes or something? But it wasn't just her random suggestions that were getting to me. It was the pressure. The pressure of them expecting me to play family politics. I wasn't the guy who could just make decisions without thinking about how they would affect everyone else. And with my family? The more I succeeded, the more they seemed to expect from me. It hit a breaking point the day my dad called. He'd been quiet about everything until that moment. Dad wasn't one for advice, or even for checking in, really. But when he did speak up, it was always direct. So, when are you going to hire me? You know, I could use the work. My truck's sitting here collecting dust, and it's a good way to keep me busy. I froze. I had no idea how to respond. Was he really asking me for a job? I'd never thought of hiring him. I mean, I loved the guy, but my business wasn't exactly a trucking company. And it wasn't like I could just create a job out of nowhere for him. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the way he said it. There was no, "Hey, I'd love to help out," or "If you need someone to handle the logistics, I've got experience." No, it was straight to the point. "When are you hiring me?" The words were like a punch to the gut. I couldn't help but feel guilty. My dad had always supported me in his own quiet way. But now, it was like he was asking me to give him a piece of the business, as if it was just there for the taking. I tried to stay calm. "Dad, you know I'm still growing, right? I'm not at a point where I can just bring on anyone, let alone, well, you know." The words felt weird coming out of my mouth. I wanted to say it in a kinder way, but I couldn't sugarcoat it. I didn't need a delivery driver. Not right now, at least. Yeah, I get it. But I've been driving for 25 years. I know the ins and outs. You could use someone with experience." He paused, and I could hear the edge in his voice. "Unless you think you're better off doing it all by yourself." I clenched my jaw. This wasn't about the business. It wasn't about the work. It was about him, about his pride, about how he felt like he'd been overlooked. And I could hear the unspoken words, "Are you saying I'm not good enough for you to hire?" I wanted to yell. I wanted to tell him I was doing my best, that this wasn't just about me building something for us, it was about me trying to make something that could last, not just something that would pass along a paycheck to anyone who asked for one. But I didn't say anything. I just let the silence hang between us. I knew if I said anything more, it'd all unravel. So, I just hung up. The next day, my sister dropped by. She had a huge smile on her face, acting like everything was fine. But the moment she sat down, I could tell something was off. She looked at me with those big, doe eyes of hers and said, "So, have you thought about giving me a job yet?" It wasn't a question, it was an expectation. And that's when I realized it wasn't just my dad. It was all of them. I didn't even know how to explain it. How do I tell my family that I'm not in a position to hire them, that I can't just give away positions because they're related to me? What do you do when the people who've doubted you your whole life start knocking on your door, expecting a piece of your success? And worse, when they demand it like it's some kind of entitlement? I felt trapped. Each request felt like another layer of pressure piling on, suffocating me slowly. But the worst part? I couldn't even talk about it with them. They'd never understand. And I didn't know how to make them see that this wasn't just a business. This was my shot. I didn't know how much longer I could keep this up. Every time I turned around, it felt like another family member was sending me messages, calling me, or dropping hints. And it wasn't even subtle anymore. It was becoming this constant, almost relentless thing. I was feeling the pressure from all sides, like I was this guy in the middle of a tug-of-war, and every family member was on the other side, pulling with all their might. The thing is, I had nothing to give. My business was small, really small. I couldn't afford to just hand out jobs to people. And honestly, the thought of working with family, on top of all the other stress, was starting to make me feel suffocated. But no matter how much I tried to dodge the subject, they kept pushing. It was like the more I said no, the more they expected me to cave in. Take my sister, for example. Her messages kept coming. "Just think about it," she'd say. "You know I'm good with Instagram. I could totally grow your business's online presence. You could pay me in, like, a percentage of sales or something. I don't mind. I just want to help." At first, I thought, okay, cool, that sounds reasonable. But then it hit me. She wasn't asking for an honest job, she was asking for a handout. A piece of the business, just like everyone else. She was trying to sugarcoat it, but the reality was clear. She thought she was entitled to a cut, just because we shared the same blood. And then there was my mom. Every time I saw her, there was that look in her eyes, like she was waiting for me to finally give in. I knew exactly what she wanted. "Have you thought about hiring your dad for the deliveries? He's been driving trucks for years, and you could really use the help." Help? I wasn't even sure how to tell her that I didn't need a delivery guy right now. My business was barely scraping by. Hiring anyone, let alone my dad, would be disastrous. But I didn't want to hurt her feelings. She had this hopeful look, and I could feel her unspoken belief that I owed them all something for all the years they'd put up with my failed dreams. But what they didn't understand was this: they weren't just asking for jobs. They were demanding them. It felt like they saw my success not as a result of hard work, but as some kind of prize they were all entitled to. And the more they pushed, the more resentful I felt. One evening, when I was trying to catch a breather and go over some new product ideas, my brother Chris showed up at my door unannounced, I opened the door, surprised to see him standing there, looking unusually serious. He didn't even crack a smile. "Hey, man. We need to talk." I knew exactly where this was going. "Yeah?" I said, trying to act casual. "What's up?" Chris walked into my living room and plopped down on the couch like he owned the place. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes intense. "You know, I've been thinking. You really need help with your accounting. I know you're doing everything on your own right now, but you're not going to grow that way. You need someone with real experience to help you keep track of all the numbers and taxes. I could take that burden off you, for real." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. Accounting? I've been doing fine on my own, I thought. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was manageable. I didn't need him. I really didn't need him. But then, he dropped it. The one thing I wasn't prepared for. "I know you've been struggling," he said, his tone suddenly softer, like he was trying to make me feel guilty. "Look, I'm not trying to take over your business, but I'm offering to help. We're family. I've always had your back. You don't need to do everything by yourself." I felt the guilt creeping in. Was I being too hard on them? Was I overreacting? They were my family, after all. They were offering to help, in their own way. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. They weren't offering help. They were offering to take control. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. The words felt like they were stuck in my throat. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I also didn't want to give away a part of my dream just because they were related to me. Instead of answering, I just stood there, staring at Chris. My mind was racing, but my mouth was locked. The silence stretched on until it was uncomfortable. Finally, he sighed and got up. "You'll figure it out. Just remember, I'm here if you need me." He left, and I was left alone with my thoughts. I knew what I had to do. But I also knew it wasn't going to be easy. Every time I thought about telling them no, a part of me felt this deep, aching guilt. I felt like I was betraying them, like I was turning my back on the people who had always been there for me, even when I was screwing up. But another part of me knew the truth. If I let them in now, I might as well hand over everything I'd worked for. They didn't want to help me build something, they wanted to take it over. I had to make a decision. And that decision? It was tearing me apart. I wish I could say I handled it all calmly, like I sat them down, made a speech about my dreams, and explained why I couldn't just hand out jobs because we were family. But let's be real, that's not how things went down. Not even close. It all came to a head one Friday night. I was sitting at my kitchen table, going over the numbers for the month, trying to figure out where I was going to find the cash to pay for inventory when my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I'd been bracing myself for this moment for a while now, so when I saw her name, I wasn't exactly surprised. "Hey, honey. I've been talking to your dad, and we think you really need to hire some help. You know, you can't do this all by yourself forever. How about you let your dad handle the deliveries, and Sam can help with marketing? I'll come by tomorrow to help you set everything up, and we can talk about how to make things more efficient around here." I felt my blood start to boil. This again? The same talk, the same helpful suggestions that felt more like demands than advice. I tried to stay calm, but I was already feeling this wave of frustration building up. I took a deep breath, shoved my phone down on the table, and ran my hands through my hair. I wanted to snap. I wanted to tell them all exactly what I thought. How much I hated feeling like I owed them something. How their help wasn't help at all, it was suffocating me. How they couldn't just waltz in and expect to take over what I'd built from scratch. But I didn't say any of that. Not yet, anyway. Instead, I did the one thing I knew would make it worse. I texted back. I'm not sure I need anyone right now. Things are going okay, but I'm still figuring it all out. Let's talk later. I immediately regretted it. It was a weak answer. It wasn't honest, and I knew it. Not 2 minutes later, my dad called. I stared at the phone for a second, then picked it up, half hoping he'd sense how stressed I was and give me some space. "No, son, we need to talk," he said, his voice sharp, almost like he was disappointed. "What's this let's talk later nonsense? You're overthinking this. We're not asking for much. We just want to help you. You've been struggling, and this could make everything easier for you." I couldn't take it anymore. The floodgates opened. Struggling? I'm not struggling, Dad. The words shot out of my mouth before I could stop them. This is my business. My future. I've been busting my ass for months, and now you're telling me you're helping by taking over? That's not help, that's control. You think just because you're my family, you get a free pass into my business? That's not how this works. There was a long pause. I could hear his breathing on the other end, slow and steady, like he was processing what I'd said. I almost expected him to hang up or get angry, but instead, he sighed. It was a heavy, defeated sound. "I'm not trying to control anything, son," he said quietly. "But I've been around a long time, and I've seen businesses grow and fail. Sometimes it takes more than just working hard. It takes support. We're trying to give you that." I could feel the weight of his words, but it didn't make it any easier. I knew he was trying to help, trying to be there, the way he thought he should. But it didn't change the fact that this was my dream. My choice. I didn't want anyone to take over, even if it was out of love. "I appreciate it, Dad, I do," I said, the anger starting to die down. "But I need you to understand that this is my business. I've been making it work on my own. I can't just start handing out jobs to people. Not yet. I don't even know if it'll work long term. And if I let you all in now, I don't know how I'll feel about it later." There was a beat of silence, and for a second, I thought the conversation was over. Maybe I'd said too much. But then he spoke again, softer this time. "Maybe you're right," he said. "Maybe you're not ready. But just know we're here for you. When you're ready, we'll be here." That was the moment I realized something crucial. My family wasn't trying to sabotage me. They weren't trying to take over for their own gain. They were scared of losing me to this new life I was building. They didn't understand it, and they didn't know how to fit into it. But they thought if they could insert themselves, they'd make sure I didn't fail. I didn't know what to say after that. What do you say to that kind of honesty? I ended the call, feeling more confused than ever. My family had always been close-knit, but this felt like something I couldn't explain away. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about boundaries. It was about me, carving out a space for myself and saying, "This is mine." But how do you do that without breaking the people you love? How do you fight for what's yours while still respecting the people who helped shape you? It took me a few days to really think about everything that had happened. I went back and forth, trying to figure out how to make sense of what I was feeling. On one hand, I felt guilty for pushing my family away. They weren't bad people. They weren't trying to hurt me. They were just trying to be a part of something they thought I was doing for all of us, even if I hadn't quite seen it that way before. On the other hand, I was scared. I was scared of losing my independence. Scared that if I gave them a part of my business, I wouldn't be able to take it back. It was hard to imagine a future where I couldn't make decisions without thinking about how it would affect everyone in my family. Where I have to ask for permission to take a risk, to fail, to try something new. I had to find a balance. I had to figure out how to keep my family close, without letting them take control of my dream. I wasn't sure what that looked like, but I knew it had to come from a place of honesty. So, I reached out. I called my dad first. "Hey, Dad," I said, my voice shaky. "Can we talk?" We agreed to meet at the usual diner. When I sat down across from him, I could tell he was still carrying that quiet disappointment from our last conversation. He wasn't angry, just resigned. And that hit me harder than anything. "Look, Dad," I started, trying to steady myself. "I've been thinking about everything you said. And you were right about one thing. I can't do this alone. But that doesn't mean I need you to take over. I need support, but it has to be on my terms." He nodded slowly. "I get it," he said. "I didn't mean to make you feel like you couldn't do this on your own. I just thought, well, you've always had a big heart, and I wanted to be there for you. But I see now, it's not about doing it for you, it's about letting you do it yourself." That was the first time in a while I'd really felt like he understood. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to carry all that weight alone. I felt lighter. But it wasn't just about fixing things with him. I needed to talk to my brothers and sister, too. Each of them had their own way of pushing, their own ways of trying to make me feel like I wasn't enough without them. But I couldn't just let it slide anymore. I needed to set some boundaries. So, I invited them over one evening. We sat down in my living room, and I started to speak before I even really knew what I was going to say. "I love you guys," I said, trying not to sound defensive. "I really do. But I need you to understand something. This business, it's mine. I started it because I believed in it, and I believed in myself. But that doesn't mean I don't need your support. I just need it in a way that's respectful of the work I'm doing." They all went quiet, staring at me like I was some kind of stranger. But I didn't back down. "I need you to respect the fact that this is my project. If I ask for help, I'll ask for it. But you can't just expect to waltz in and start telling me what I should do." My younger sister, Lizzie, was the first to break the silence. "We didn't mean to pressure you," she said quietly. "We just wanted to be a part of your success, you know? We've always been there for you, and I think we all got excited about the idea of seeing you make it." That hit me hard. It wasn't about taking over, it was about them wanting to be a part of something that mattered to me. They wanted to see me win, and maybe, just maybe, they didn't know how to be supportive without offering something. "I get that," I said, feeling my chest tighten. "But the way you show support matters. I need space to make my own mistakes, to figure out how to grow this on my own. I want to succeed, but I need to do it my way." They were all quiet for a moment, but I could see it clicking for them. The tension was still there, but it felt like I'd at least made myself clear. And after a long pause, my brother Sam spoke up, his voice softer than usual. "I guess we've been acting like you owe us something, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah. And I can't keep feeling like that's what's going on. I'm doing this for me, and if I'm being honest, I need to be able to trust that the people I bring on are doing it because they believe in what I'm building, not because they feel like they have to." The room felt a little lighter after that. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. The next few weeks weren't exactly smooth sailing. There were still moments when I felt overwhelmed by the pressure. But I stuck to my guns. I kept pushing forward with the business, with my family watching from the sidelines. They stopped asking for jobs, stopped offering unsolicited advice. They let me do my thing. And you know what? It worked. I grew. The business grew. And while I didn't exactly have all the answers, I had something I hadn't had before: control. Real control. Not just over my business, but over my life. Sometimes, family will push you. Sometimes, they'll make you feel like you owe them something for just being there. But in the end, it's your life to live. You can't let anyone, no matter how much you love them, take away your right to choose your own path. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just building a business. I was building the courage to live life on my own terms.